Hi everyone, welcome to our first podcast, Three Devs and a Maybe.
Good evening and welcome to another instalment of Three Devs and a Maybe.
Good afternoon, ladies and gents. Welcome to the Three Devs and a Maybe podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe. Hello and welcome
to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe.
Oh, that was great. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe, the 100th episode.
Woo!
We've done it. We did 100 episodes of this.
That's Can we retire now?
We can, live in our mansion, Yeah, anyway, Mickey.
Yes.
Do you want to kick off? I mean, hopefully through my lovely editing, we would have heard your beginning of the first episode, and it was quite fun going back and listening to that.
Yeah.
Do you want to kick off the 100th episode, man?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, like you say, 100th episode, pretty crazy, and it felt very befitting. Is that a word? I don't. In the sense that when I first came up with the idea of doing the podcast, I was driving back from Bath, or Bath, for you guys, yeah. And, and we just all met up, like, near Bath, right? This weekend.
It is pretty crazy. Bath.
Full circle.
Yeah, so, it's crazy to think we've done 100 episodes, and crazy to think that the Maybe was Mr. Ed Mann, who has
no life and seems to do this
pretty
all the
much
time.
running the show, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We probably wouldn't be here without him.
Yeah, exactly that. And I guess this is the right sort of time to thank someone like our repeat guests and really loyal fans of the show and people who've come on the podcast. I mean, I hate to list them now because I'm going to forget people, but certainly like Ed, you raised the point that Joe Watkins has been on was that 8 times?
And Jimmy in particular as well.
Jimmy Burrell. Yeah, the nicest guy on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone who's come on the show and taken the time. I mean, we never thought that this would actually be anything really. And
I think everyone who's come on, we've been blown away that people have given up their spare time to come on, really. And people who thought we would probably just delete our email straight away.
Well, that's it, yeah. Delete our tweet, delete our email, and ignore it. Actually, going, yeah, sure. And we're like, oh, crap, you actually want to come on? Wow. Okay, I didn't really expect a yes.
Yeah, that's it. So, but anyway, should we go around as we usually do? Let's start with Fraser Hart. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I can't remember what I've been up to since the last time I spoke. It's been business as usual in the office. I've done no freelance work over the weekend. Obviously, I saw you guys at the weekend, which is good fun. And that is pretty much me, to be honest. I don't have a whole lot to report. Nothing exciting's happened. It's just been chugging away and been working on some new developments on the lottery app that I work on at my day job. And that's
the VR thing, though. That's pretty.
Oh yeah, I've been playing a lot of VR. Not as much VR as I'd like. I think last time I played was Friday night before I saw you lot. So I'm gonna, after the podcast tonight, I'm gonna have some food and then have a couple of hours of VR.
And you can make a sandwich in VR.
Can I just cut in a mo?
Go for it, man.
I just lost all.
And he's gone.
Oh,
audio for about 2 minutes.
Oh
I
my
didn't
God.
hear any of that.
This is
so apologies if you hear me talk.
Wow.
This is like déjà vu. This is like the first episode. It's like Ed, and this is how Ed got into programming.
We've done this deliberately, right?
Absolutely. This is all part of the present that is the 100th episode.
Yeah.
Was I the only one that cut out there?
You did the Ed. You did the Ed. Blame it on your router, and
Would you like to endorse Virgin Broadband right now, or? No, go on.
Well,
sorry.
This is confusing.
Wow.
Can you hear us, Lou?
I can now, yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
I want to know what happened.
So, Lou, how have you been, man? What have you been up to this week?
I've been getting over my birthday. This was fun. Thanks for coming up, guys. Hope you liked it.
It was a great catch-up. Great catch-up.
Yeah, all three of the guys came up for my birthday in Frome, so we had a nice barbecue on Saturday, which seems like ages ago because I'm looking out the window at pouring rain now. And, had a good catch-up. It was really, really... really cool. Good to see you guys. First time we'd all been together since I can remember.
Likewise. Yeah, no, it's really good. Thank you very much for hosting us. And and thank you for the spectacular barbecue.
Spectacular. By that you mean everyone's still alive.
Yes. No, it's fantastic as well because I was saying like the missus has gone vegan, so it's very rare that I get to eat a lot of meat. So yeah, it was very, very good.
Oh, awesome. Did you get out on your bike ride?
I did, yeah. Yeah, it was quite a late one, but managed to get out for a few hours, which was okay, and then did a little run afterwards. So
cool. Yeah. Well, it's like it's come and gone. We're all back working again, and suddenly, yeah. But work's going all right. I've got 2 things going at the moment that keep flip flopping. My You can't say the actual name of what you're doing when it's not gone live yet, can you? It'd be much easier if I could. But the Rightmove property site has come to another little bit of a halt, which is a bit of a pain. But that's all been going well.
Is it Silly Billy tax?
On my mug. Ed got me a mug.
Oh, I got you. No. I mean, does this involve Silly Billy tax? The fact that certain things aren't going live, just clients and stuff.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I've already what we're 2 days and a bit of Monday, so I've already put in about 5-6 hours worth of overtime in 2.5 days, and 4 today, and then said thing that was supposed to be happening today didn't go ahead. So
reliance.
Yeah, all good.
Well, you been up to? You been up to anything else in your free time, program-wise? So you haven't had much free time, seeing as you've been working.
No. I've been out on the golf course a little bit. That's been going nicely.
Nice.
Other than that, I've just got one other project on the go, which is an in-house thing for the company to help showcase all the photography for the brochures, which has been quite an interesting project. I've been doing that.
Can you speak a bit about that? Are you allowed to talk about that, or is that under wraps?
No, that's all right. That's just a client thing. That's so basically what happens is we send out photographers to go and take nice high-res pictures of all the properties and stuff in London that are going to be going into the brochures. And currently at work, they send them the photos and they just have to manually compile PDFs with them, which takes them forever because there's probably 50-60 photos for each project. So I'm building just an app where they can upload all the photos through and then compiling them into contact sheet PDFs on the front. They're called contact sheets, but they're just basically like a photo album in PDF form. So
nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. I've gone a bit crazy with it. I've taken the opportunity to try and do a few different things. I've started with a fresh Laravel installation rather than plugging in all my old existing code and stuff. And yeah, it's been quite fun to work on, actually. I found a really cool thing called Upload Care, which I don't know if you've heard of.
No, what's that?
It's like a CDN cloud-based thing, so you can upload all your images onto the server, onto the Upload Care servers rather than onto your own.
Oh, nice. Do they provide an API? So is it it's hosted uploads then, essentially?
Yeah, it is
cool.
Exactly that. I'll put a link in the...
Yeah. What's the pricing like on that?
It's not too bad. You're all right up until... hang on, I'll just get the thing up. It's free for quite a while.
Because it's always interesting with these, because some of them kind of are just essentially wrap S3. Do you know if this wraps S3 or has it got its own?
It backs up to S3, but I don't think it wraps anything. I'm not entirely sure. It supports a few various things. But
it's quite nice sometimes to just let someone else deal with all the upload stuff, especially assets and things like that.
Well, when you're dealing with this many pictures and stuff, like 50, 60 high-res images.
You don't want that hassle. And then, as you say, backing them up, making sure they're all right and everything. You just want the business logic. You edit, update, but then the actual assets are stored somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And they give you a really nice widget, HTML5 widget that you can stick on your page as well, that you can use for dragging and dropping and all that stuff. And it just kind of works and it's nice. It takes care of a lot of stuff that would otherwise take a while quite quickly.
Brilliant.
So you just have to register your account in there, get your key, drop that in, and Bob's your teapot.
That is a Bob's your teapot. How about you, Mickey? What have you been up to now?
So obviously I'm still working on my big sort of web stats project and trying to think if there's anything new in there that I should really talk about. So I've swapped out the OAuth library that I was using. Brent Schaefer's one, and I'm now using sorry for pronunciation, but Luca Digisperi's one, which has sort of custom made for Laravel, which has been quite nice. Generally still massively confused about OAuth, but I think slightly understanding it more than I was. And I've gone from using sort of a refresh token system to just sort of a standard client credentials one. And what else have I been doing? I've been doing a lot more PHP unit stuff just on my API endpoints. And other than that, there was something else and it's completely gone. But
that was the most important part.
Yes, exactly that. But it's still going. I've had a lot of demos this week, one to my client and then one to one of the shareholders of the
always fun
project.
Is that always when the problems happen and you're like, oh come on, how did the demo
Yeah, weirdly the demo went a lot better than I thought it would do, to be honest with you, and that's where the testing I guess is come in handy. So yeah, just really busy with that, and then I still got my masters looming that I really need to get done by September, and really struggling, to be honest with you, doing that and being self-employed is really, really hard. And yeah,
do you find guilty when you're? I guess, but it could go both ways, doesn't it? Like you'd feel guilty when you're doing your coursework, and you'd also feel guilty when you're doing work because you're neglecting.
100%. And on top of that, feel guilty sometimes that I've not spent enough time with Toby as well. So, but at the same time, if you don't do the work, then you don't make the money. And it's not like, if you've got a full-time job, then you get paid regardless of whether you've been lazy that month or you've put in a great shift that month. And so, it is very different in that respect. But I'm still really enjoying it. And I am learning a lot, and I said to Ed today, I still feel like I'm learning React. Like I've been using it for, maybe 4 or 5 months now, and I still feel like every day I'm learning something with that, or a different way of doing it, or a better way of like using components in like various areas, like reusing them and stuff.
Yep. I guess in a way that's really good because it means it keeps it fresh, and I don't know, maybe keeps the enjoyment value there when you're constantly learning stuff.
Definitely, I really have learned a lot in the last 5-6 months. Actually, I really feel I've benefited from that, and React and Flux, and React Router I started using the other day because the application I'm making is supposed to be a single page application, so I wanted something. So
you mentioned PHP unit on your API. Are you also doing testing on your React stuff as well?
I'm not. Yeah, I do need to do that. Yeah, you probably shamed me there, but in the minute,
sorry,
no, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. But I sort of, when I started this project, I was thinking, because I'm my own boss, effectively, I'm going to do this 100% right, and I'm going to have testing from the start. And then it was like, right, I really need to meet this milestone by this date, so I'll just get all this code out, and then I'll test it afterwards. And like literally, it's in sort of this week that I started adding a lot more testing to those API endpoints. But I felt like that was a good place to start, because if they're working, then in theory, the rest of the application should work okay. But you're right, the front end stuff, the React, I really do need to. And I don't know what the best way to do that is. I don't know. Ed, do you have anything?
So yeah, I mean, we my builder, we've kind of gone through many different ways of testing the React side of things, because you can kind of go React, is the view layer, like you were saying, like with React Router and things, and you have the Flux architecture around it, but you kind of encapsulate all the business logic within Flux and the stores, and then you use React just for the presentation layer. But you get into some cases where obviously you use things internal state within React components, and then that makes them a bit more confusing. So what typically now you use the kind of Redux model where essentially you're passing down props all the time. So your components are just passing props. Like you can have a little bit of state within them, but everything should just be passing props. And essentially, because that's referentially transparent, which essentially just means something that if you pass it the same parameters, it will give you the same output. Now, if you make a React component with only props, everything that I pass you, technically, if I ask for the result of that, it will be the exact thing that I expect, and it will be that way all the time. As opposed to maybe with state things, what happens is you load up a state component, you arrange it into a certain state, and then you do your asserts and things. So typically, we've kind of gone through. So the way that I typically have done it in the past is you have your Flux, so you kind of have, so you're looking at the diagram. If you were to look at the diagram of the Flux architecture, you'd know from the actions to the store, where you say, okay, then like pass this in, and then the output, which is the store, assert what comes out there, and you just use that as a black box essentially. So you're just saying, call this action with these props, with these arguments or whatever, and assert that this store is in this state. Brilliant. That's input output. That's very nice, very easy, very kind of state driven testing. And then from there, what you're using that state for is for the components. So then what you'd do is you'd stub the store, and then you'll be able to then just isolate and use the React side where you're doing the React. Maybe you're saying, okay, when it's got these this store state, it should be represented like this and things like that. Clicking that should you then do the contract test where you're saying, okay, if I click on this button, what should happen is it should go and call this client action. You can spy on that to make sure it does that. So you can assert both levels. You can assert both the actions to the store in its isolation, and then you can assert that the React side of it is doing it, where it's displaying the things correctly. It can do some internal state, but this is where it gets a bit a bit funky, where how much do you want to do within the state of React. Maybe you should be pushing that more out into the Flux architecture, and or Redux, whatever you use, and then what you then do is you can do your contract test, which are when I actually click these actions, what happens? When I click on something, does it actually call the correct action? Doesn't matter that it's doing the action, because you're testing the action in another kind of isolation test. That was worked really well for us, but we've kind of working around, using more props-based stuff, less state stuff. But yeah, so there's many ways you can go, and there is like the whole thing of like using Phantom JS and kind of that's like the Selenium of the world of JavaScript, where essentially you're just giving a whole browser to it, a whole, and that's fine, but it's very slow. And especially with this thing called shallow rendering and things now in the React world, where you don't have to render everything and you're only like rendering one level deep, because if you're using these functions essentially, which are just returning your state, you can essentially just shallowly say, okay, is it doing what's doing in there, as opposed to having to load up this massive tree where you've got the stores, registering to those, etc. It's just a simple function call. So it's kind of taking that functional style and having these very small functions that are isolated, and everything that they need is passed into parameters, and then it's returned, and not worrying about any magic internal state stuff.
Okay, yeah. Well, I need to get around to doing that, to be honest with you. But that sounds good. Yeah. So how about you, Ed? Man, you're the only one we've left out, right?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, man. Yeah. So what I've been doing. So a project that I've been working on probably last week started. That was released today. It was my first foray into any kind of front-endy CSS-y. CSS, JavaScript, more kind of just the typical front-endy stuff, as opposed to like the application side stuff using React and all that in a while, probably in a year or two, which is quite crazy, in a year or so. And it was a very simple case of just essentially restyling this FAQ section. So I actually had to do some of the markup for it, and then I did it to the CSS. I was trying to follow this BEM, which is like a CSS standard, and I then had to give it to the designers to say, look, is this okay, what I'm doing with the CSS? Because again, like all this stuff using learning Flex and all this has been a great learning curve, and it's completely different to it is crazy how more complex the front end stuff now is, and you can kind of get very rusty at it. And I will say one thing though. So one of the things we do now, obviously, is we don't use jQuery, and we're just using vanilla JavaScript. And I won't go back. Like the things you can do with just query selector and class list are just amazing. Query selector essentially allows you to use CSS selectors, which is one of the wins of being able to select things from the DOM using jQuery. You can do that now in just native, and you can do that from native from IE8. IE8 has a little bit of problems because I think it's only CSS 3 compatibility is a little bit mixed, but I would say from IE9, if you're supporting IE9 and above, just use query selector. You don't need to worry about jQuery anymore. And then class lists available from IE10, I think it is, and you can get polyfills for anything lower, and that's what we do. And a class list essentially allows you to be able to manipulate the classes on things, because typically now everything's done with classes, and then query selector allows us to be able to fetch things from the DOM. So with those two things under your belt, you can pretty much do everything that I felt I needed to do with jQuery. That I pretty much all the typical things you would do with jQuery is fetching things from the DOM, and then adding event listeners and things like that. And yeah, I was amazed that I've been able to do this work, do a lot of very DOM intensive stuff, being able to find things using CSS selectors and things, find the first, etc., and do all this logic to show and hide things and everything, stuff that I would just do in jQuery, but then I've been able to do just in vanilla JavaScript.
Have you been referring to the jQuery source for that?
No, because essentially now you really can kind of just, there's a website, do I need to use jQuery.com, but really a lot of it, you can just learn it in vanilla, and it's so much nicer knowing the vanilla side of it, because you don't then have the payload of just jQuery coming down the pipe. Yeah. But one thing, and this has been kind of the trend, because I think Googling stuff saying, oh, please, how do I in JavaScript do X or Y, always brings up a jQuery answer. It's because jQuery has become ubiquitous for JavaScript, and it is so annoying because obviously I don't want to use jQuery. I'm like, how do I do this in vanilla JavaScript? But you still.
But then 2 years ago, that information would have been absolute gold dust to us. So it's just kind of waiting for the times to catch up, and everyone getting used to the fact that not everyone's using jQuery these days, and then that will start to become the norm again, I think.
Am I in a minority here then, being still using it?
No, I still use jQuery. Well, we use Backbone, and one of Backbone's just dependencies is jQuery. So it's already in there. So I'll use it to make things easier for myself. But if I'm using a project that doesn't have Backbone, then then I won't use it. But
I even use it inside of React components sometimes. I probably get slammed for that.
It's whatever you want to use. If you're using it and you enjoy it, that's fine. Like in our kind of with my builder, we want to kind of get away from it just because of the performance side of things, and we just want the fact that we can now do most. The nice thing is we can only have to support IE9 and above, so we have quite a luxury in that the things that IE9 supports we can use happily.
Does it affect the payload that much then?
Well, it's a massive. If you think about jQuery, what you're bringing down for no reason. Like all the transition stuff, all of the, the kind of quirk mode things and all that. Like you just don't need to worry about it if you're just using vanilla JS. But anyway, no. So one of the things was obviously that, they're all jQuery answers. What I found, and I've been looking through Google, is that you can do some really advanced, I say advanced, like you can actually do some more search, more kind of complicated searches within Google, and you can actually like remove certain things. You can say not including jQuery and things like that. How do I do the X in JavaScript? Then I'll do dash jQuery, and essentially that means not anything with jQuery in the content. So it allows me to then filter out essentially anything with jQuery, and I only get the vanilla stuff. So it's a nice way of being able to just say, look, I really want just vanilla stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I wouldn't say that using jQuery is bad at all, because it serves a purpose. Like, if you're still having to support browsers less than IE9, then you're going to want to be using it, especially for stuff, like if you can't use query selector completely, then yeah, you definitely still need to use it.
Yeah, and
also who gave me my first jQuery lesson? It was Michael Budd.
Oh yeah,
do you remember me?
Day.
Do you remember?
No, but tell me.
You came upstairs, and when we were working in that first place where we worked together.
Yeah.
And
seductive, like.
Yeah, swanned his way up, and proceeded to sit down and show me some cool jQuery stuff.
Was it good advice? I do remember it now. Yeah, it's come flashing back. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the file sizes of jQuery minified. So the minified jQuery is between 80 and 85K, depending on which version you use. If you're in 2.x, so it's not a massive amount. It's probably the size of a couple of images. Which, if you get a lot of benefit out of it, then it's absolutely worth keeping it in. It's also worth considering as well, because it does make it a bit slower using it than the vanilla JavaScript, because obviously you've got so many different kind of paths for the execution to go down just to execute, for instance, document query selector or whatever. It's not a massive amount, but if you're trying to squeeze every kind of last shaving off your page, then you'll do well to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think I definitely sort of agree with everyone saying it. Like, in no way, shape, or form should jQuery be slagged off, because it was absolutely brilliant, and still is absolutely brilliant. But
like a lot of people that are into JavaScript these days, they came in through jQuery.
Because JavaScript was so horrible.
Yeah, exactly. But
I think it's a really unintimidating way for people to get into programming as well, I think, isn't it? Because it's kind of a lot of people that are now writing JavaScript, they came to web development through HTML and CSS, and they kind of learn CSS, and like, hang on a second, I can do JavaScript knowing pretty much CSS and a little bit more. And then it's kind of, it still is a really good entry into JavaScript.
I mean, jQuery essentially made the APIs that we have for JavaScript, for the DOM, and for dealing in the browser, made them better, because the fact that we had this nice API from jQuery heavily influenced, I'm guessing, how they developed query selector, and how they developed all these things that are now present in the browser.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a good thing.
It's mad to think I'm the newest to this out of the four of us, and I've been doing it nearly 4 years now. Even in those 4 years, JavaScript, PHP hasn't changed massively in terms of a lot of the stuff I do. We do is still the same. There's obviously new features as you go along, but JavaScript has just changed completely, hasn't it?
I'd say even with the S2015, it's not changed.
Just with what you can do, like the immersion of
I think it's how much you're using it
now
for,
and everything.
Yeah. I think it's how much you're using it now, and like how much you're kind of depending on it. And I guess that's because you've started trusting the browser more.
Now,
yeah, you've started trusting the browser more. You've started relying more on the browser doing work. Like I say, like the work that I did today, like a lot of it, you're thinking, you could just do page refresh loads for it and things like that. But it's like we're trusting JavaScript now to actually do this correctly in all browsers, and yeah,
completely agree. I think like you say, it's like, it's the browsers that have really evolved as well, as much as anything, that have really brought it forward, I guess. Yeah. But I tend to now, if I can avoid it, I don't use jQuery. I would never start a project and use jQuery now. But the legacy sites that I've got, I'm not going to sweat over it and go and refactor them all to take out jQuery, unless it's just minimal usage. But yeah, it's just one of those, isn't it? But yeah, I think with PHP, it's saying it hasn't changed much. I think probably because we sort of all pretty got into it, like when from PHP sort of 5 onwards. But I know like PHP 4 like people talk about that as like the dark times, don't they? Especially like things like the date time functionality, all that kind of stuff. And was it PHP 4 with like the static? What was it? It was private methods had the underscores at the beginning, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? Did it not have any modifiers, like
Yeah,
usability modifiers? So you had to you denote that, like, you see, that's the thing. JavaScript still has that.
Yeah, yeah.
But even going back to the point of JavaScript having changed, I don't think JavaScript has actually changed a great deal. Obviously, ES 2015 was a fairly major step forward, but for the most part, it was like syntactic sugar, wasn't it, rather than anything else? Yeah. Like under the hood, it's still pretty much exactly the same. We've got things like maps and what have you now, which is really great. But I think the biggest thing for JavaScript is just how it's been implemented. Like in terms of all these new frameworks coming through, and people are thinking of new ways of using the same tool for a lot of good. So I think under the hood, JavaScript is pretty much, it's not changed a huge amount, but I think the big change has obviously been in the industry of people finding creative ways to use it, and it's fantastic. So we've got all these frameworks now, and we can do things with JavaScript that we couldn't even think about, like even 5 years ago. And it's a great thing.
It's very powerful. But as you said, Lou, though, it is funny that in the time you've spent in the web game, we were preaching jQuery, and now you've seen, the up and down of that, where, okay, now it's gone and things like that. So, yeah, it's an ever-changing world we live in.
It's the conversation we were having at the weekend, isn't it? That every time you find something that you think you might want to use, and then you do a bit of research on it, you find 5 or 6 articles saying, oh, no, you should never use that.
Yep.
And it's
it's true.
It's kind of like that. So by the time people will start using, I don't know, I suppose most people are going to start using Babel and everything else like that. But there'll be people out there saying don't use that, I'm sure.
Well, eventually, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a quick little quiz kind of thing. I've got a quick little quiz. Like, so as it's the 100th episode. I thought it'd be interesting to go back or throughout the whole 99 previous and kind of run some stats on them. And I thought it'd be quite a fun game for everyone. So what we'll do is we'll go Mickey, Fraser, and then Lou. And you give me the answer you guess, and the closest one wins, essentially. Okay. So I've got a couple of questions. So how much time, the duration of time, do you reckon it would take to listen to the whole the previous 99 episodes? How long do you reckon they go for in total, back to back?
So in theory, they're all like an hour long, right? So, but then I'm pretty sure I'm just going to go. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with 100. 100 hours.
Okay. How about you, Fraser?
I'm going to say slightly over, because I remember in the early days we were doing shows that were kind of like, we had a couple that were 2 hours, and then we went through a run of doing like hour and 15-minute shows. So I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to say 100 and... I'm torn between 115 and 120. Ooh. I'm going to say 120.
Okay. How about you, Lou?
We're usually pretty good at hitting the nose of 1 hour at a time, but... As you say, I remember there was one we did with Justin, probably the first one we did with Justin, where we probably could have gone on all night there. So I think we cut it short somewhere around the 2 hour mark, or maybe just beforehand. And there aren't that many that we've done that have been under an hour, I don't think. So I'm going to say, what did Fraser say?
He said 120.
I didn't want to take his right. I think it's more than that. So I'll say 140.
Oh,
wow. Okay,
let's be ambitious.
So I'm just looking through Google, and so 140 hours is 5.8 days in total, and then 120 hours is 5 days, and 100 hours is 4.1 days. Now, the actual answer is, drum roll a little bit, 4 days, 10 hours, to 4 days, 10 hours, 50 minutes, and 58 seconds. So I think... it is Mr. Michael Budd. You got
it. Saying minutes.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to then ask the average duration. So it is over an hour. I'm going to give you that because everyone got an hour. So
how many days do we have?
So it's 4 days, 10 hours, 50 minutes.
4 days, 10 hours.
10 hours.
So 24, 48, 96.
Because I made 120
106 hours. Do you say 4 days, 10 hours?
Yeah.
106 hours.
10 hours.
106 hours, yeah. So it is, I think Mr. Michael Budd did get that one. So the other question is the average duration. Now, it is over 100. No, 100? No, sorry, I'm getting confused now. It is over 1 hour. but how much past an hour is it? Our average duration per episode?
1 hour, 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Fraser?
1 hour and 4 minutes.
And Lou?
1 hour, 6 minutes.
Okay, well, the actual answer is 1 hour, 4 minutes and 45 seconds.
And how many seconds?
45 seconds.
Oh, Mickey wins.
Oh, excellent. Right.
Yeah, so that's it. So it is over an hour each episode.
Mick with the least free time on his hands out of all of us, yet knows this stuff. Unbelievable.
2 other questions. These are actually quite interesting. So, which day of the week do you reckon we release the most episodes on?
Tuesday.
Okay.
Oh, release.
Release, yeah, not record. That's the trick. Yeah, it's release.
Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday, yeah.
For Fraser?
Wednesday.
Okay. Lou?
Can I say Wednesday as well?
You can do.
I think
and you'll
Wednesday.
both be right, because
Yeah.
it's 50 episodes.
Yeah.
50 episodes have gone out on Wednesday.
Boom.
And what is the least, the day that we release the least?
It's got to be Saturday.
Yeah, it is. Okay, and the final question is, what month of the year have we done the most podcasts in? So this is the total over all the years, we've done, which is about 3 years. Which month have we done the most in?
We were pretty... Oh, no, we do a lot more now, so I'm going to say March.
Okay, Fraser?
April.
Lou?
January.
Oh, it's actually May.
Oh.
And January is second. Actually, we have... So it's May, we have 13 episodes released. January, February and April were 10 episodes released. And what do you reckon the least amount of releases are? What month?
December.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
December, 100%.
December.
Oh, it's August. Summer month.
Oh,
I know, I thought, hang on, that's summer month. So that's obviously... So we don't do much on Saturday and we don't do much in August. There we go. And then actually a little bonus one, completely geeky. How many gigabytes do you reckon we have of footage of like MP3? Obviously this is releasable footage.
So this is edited and
This is the edited. This is the compressed. This is just whatever they can get from the podcast feed.
Oh, wow. So I'm guessing probably every episode is... Hang on, you say it's compressed or uncompressed?
This is compressed. This is what you get released.
Compressed.
This is what we give to the audience or us as well.
I'm going to say 4 gig.
Oh, I was going to say 4 gig.
Oh, dear. You can say 4 gig if you want. If you want to stick
I don't
with
want
that. I know, this is it.
Yeah, oh, God. Right, so... Because I just had to look at my podcast app as well to see just how big the files are. So I'm going to say 3.8 gig.
Okay, and Lou?
4.7 gig.
Mr. Fraser Hart.
Oh,
3.51 gig. You're the closest there, man. Yeah, so over 3.5 gig of beautiful 3 Days podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran those stats quickly today, and it was just really interesting to see, like, kind of that. And,
How long did it take to pull that off?
Oh, just about 5 minutes. It's really good.
I didn't get the stats.
It was quite fun, actually, like going through, because we have all of the markdown files have got, like, when we release them, duration, sizes, etc. So it's really easy just to be able to pull them out, do some stats, run some stats on them and everything, and kind of get.
Are you going to release the code that you did the stats on?
I am, actually. I think I might as well.
What is it, PHP or Python?
It's just PHP. It's just bog standard PHP. I find that, though, actually. I don't know if you guys are the same. Actually, maybe not any more phrase with you, because you're JavaScript heavy now, but if I need to do a scripting thing, quick thing, I always just turn to PHP.
Classic ASP.
And classic. Can you actually run classic ASP from the command line? I don't even know if you can. I don't know if you can. I'm just wondering. Because obviously PHP, run from command line, boom, and I use it all the time for things, small little things.
That's a really good idea, yeah, because I did a Python tutorial and half of that was done through the command line, so yeah, that kind of stuff would be pretty cool.
Awesome. So that's quite a nice little thing just to see what happened. I will actually say quickly, speaking about like thank yous and all that lot, Joe Watkins, so we sent him off as a thank you because it's 8 episodes. It's quite a lot of episodes to be a guest of. So we thought, thanks Joe for, coming on the podcast so much and you've, given your free time away essentially. We sent him off a 3 Devs t-shirt and I'll put it in the show notes. I just sent a picture.
Oh, cool.
Which is quite nice. Yeah. So he sent a picture of him with it rocking the 3 Devs and a maybe look. So
which colour did he go for?
He went for the black. Well, actually, no, this is the really bad thing. I actually chose it for him.
Really? Everyone always goes for the black.
But actually, I was going to speaking about the 100th episode, kind of discussing how the podcast has gone, because it is quite interesting. This has been 3 years of our lives kind of just spent podcasting, and how we've done it has changed. I mean, Mickey, do you want to explain how we used to do the podcast? If people who haven't actually listened to the first episode, how was it actually recorded?
Yeah, I imagine the first 3 or 4 maybe were just literally recorded through the mic of my iMac. I think I didn't even have the Yeti back then. Obviously, I didn't get that till you guys got it for me for my birthday, I think. But it was literally all you guys coming out the speakers of the iMac and going back into the
mental.
mic.
And it sounds not too bad. It is quite scary how well that actually sounded. And also the audio. How did you actually do the intro? Because it is just you turning it down, isn't it?
I think. Oh man, I'm so embarrassed to say that.
We had the same theme tune without the introduction, didn't we?
Yeah.
And rather than fading out, I think he just hit stop.
It just goes
to slider. Yeah. Oh man,
that's mental. But yeah, I mean, it's funny how we've all started this podcast and we've carried it on, and really, it's super easy to get into podcasts. And I suppose one thing I'd like to say in this episode, is if you want to start a podcast, start a podcast. It is easy. The hardest thing you can do really is kind of where to start, I guess. I suppose for us, where did we start? How did we figure out how to do things and stuff? I know that, and I suppose, Mickey, how did you find out about, I know you wanted to do a podcast, obviously, that was coming back from Bath, that was you wanted to do, but how did you get into the idea of how you were going to do it?
Do you know, so obviously when I first met you guys, I was such a noob and still am to this day, but I was really, really hungry to learn, and you guys were probably listening to more podcasts than I was, and I tried to get into that, and I was listening to things like .NET Rocks, that kind of stuff, and I absolutely loved it, but maybe understood maybe 10% of it, and didn't really feel like there was a podcast out there at the time that really helped just complete beginners. And I know we've kind of ventured away from that a little bit now, because we had to, really. We couldn't keep doing the same material week in, week out. And but yeah, at the time, I just felt like we filled a gap that was there. And yeah, I know your reservations, you were, that we might get slated and who would actually listen. And I don't know, we've not had much negative feedback. The negative feedback we've had, we just kind of taken it on the chin. And yeah, I'm just, still blown away by the amount of people who listen, to be honest with you. And yeah, again, just the amount of people who've come on the show is just crazy.
Yeah, it's just a huge thank you to both, the audience and the guests. It's quite, again, amazing.
Yeah, and I think, didn't we get an email one time, it was from Australia or something, and saying, because of you guys, I've quit my job and become a developer or something like that.
I think so, yeah. That is the most amazing thing ever, isn't it?
He's dead now. He committed suicide 2 months later.
He regretted it immediately once he did it. He said, why did I listen to these British people? It's so weird. They got funny accents.
That was the main, I think, and one of the criticisms we got, wasn't it, that we sounded too British.
I don't know how we can change that, really. Apart from putting some awful accents on.
Yeah, I kind of like that, though, because it's nice to know that we got listeners from, because I know we got loads of listeners in the US and, you say, Australia, and we've had some from Scandinavia and Europe, and I'm probably making all these places up. But
carry on. They don't know the stats. We can carry on. Yeah, we get.
But it is really nice just kind of knowing that, because we generally come together, and it's nice kind of chatting to each other, and we do this as much just to catch up with each other. And it's really nice that people actually take an interest in what we do, and kind of it's nice that people actually spend the time in their busy days to listen to what we do. And we do really appreciate everyone listening, and all the feedback we get is beautiful. And I think the other thing is, for me, I think imposter syndrome's become quite famous. In the last few years, it seems to have come to the surface more. But I think certainly when we started recording the podcast, I was certainly a lot more intimidated by a lot of the podcasts that were out there, and I felt like anything I didn't understand on a podcast meant that I was clearly doing something wrong and I shouldn't be in that business. So I just wanted to do a podcast where we weren't afraid to say, look, I haven't got a clue what this does or how it works. And I hope that was refreshing for some people. Obviously, I'm guessing it was because people listened. So yeah. I think it's great. I remember the first time we sat down and did one of these podcasts, as I'm recording now, I always sit on my bed because I don't have a desk in my flat. So I sit on my bed with the microphones in my legs. But I remember, the first time we recorded one, I was sitting there absolutely petrified. I don't think I've ever been as nervous before in my life. And I remember we must have run through the intro, everyone's sitting there giggling, no, you do it first, no, you do the intro, and all that stuff. And it's really kind of nice to think back to then. And then, I think we've all become a lot more comfortable on the podcast and what have you, and whether that's reflective and whether people are enjoying it now. We sound better and more professional. Hopefully we do. But yeah, it's just kind of nice to see how far we have come in.
I don't think I do. I don't feel like I'm a natural when I talk about anything code related. That's why probably I'm the one out of the four of us that talks code the least. I don't know.
I think you'd be being harsh on yourself there.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm still relative. Well, I don't know. I keep saying new to it. I'm 4 years in. Maybe that's not new to it, but it's still. And whenever I'm talking about it, it doesn't feel kind of natural what I'm saying. And every time I try and talk about something, I immediately think afterwards, "Well, did that even make sense?" I mean, it made sense. It's made sense in my head, but
I think that's true for like 90% of developers out there, and that's why it's important.
To everyone on this podcast, man. I think,
and Ed's not one of those 90%.
I am.
The thing that really gets me is like we come on here and I'll try and like get words out and stuff, and then Ed's like the most kind of technically mindedly spoken person. Like you would make the best lecturer on the planet, I think.
Yeah.
Like you're really good and really fluent about talking about what's on your mind and stuff. So yeah, you kind of you say all this really articulate stuff, and I'm like, I saw this video on the internet, and
well, that's kind of. But I feel the exact same way. When I'll once I eventually quiet down and actually shut up, I then think, crap, did I actually make any sense there? And like I have to think in my brain, I think I did, I guess I did, maybe. And again, like I always go with this: if it helps one person think about one thing that I've talked about, great. Like that's all that matters. And if every episode we help one person, or maybe every other episode we've helped one person, whatever, that's the value I get out of them. It's been able to like help people, and again, and also talk to you guys, because I mean that's the thing. Like this is the only time we ever get actually to talk to each other. Really, I mean, again, we met up at the weekend, but that's very rare. So this is the only time we all kind of get to chat and talk about this and geek out like we used to do.
Yeah, and I think Lou, with your point, I am 100% with you, and I'm the same in the sense that like I see something in PHP and I think, I need to know why that works, and then even if I understood that in PHP, then I want to know how it works in C, and then I want to know how it works in like binary. That's just the way I am, and I have to deal with that every day of my life and realize that I'm never going to understand everything. But I kind of come to the conclusion that if you make software with good conscience, and you do it in a way that you think is responsible, and you think you're covering things like errors and bugs, that kind of stuff, and you test it, then you know what, you've done your job, I think.
One thing I mentioned to you guys at the weekend, which I would say is advice that I would give to anyone who might want it, is obviously it's a bit of a crazy industry out there, particularly when you're looking up stuff online and you're trying to find out, whether or not you should do something, or the best way to do something. I mean, as I said earlier on, there's always a million reasons not to do something. So find a few people that you do trust, and and go from them. If there'll always be people out there that that you can trust, I think.
Yeah, and
does that make sense? I've done it again. I've just said that, and then my brain's gone. That didn't make sense. My brain's gone like it's a separate entity.
It made perfect sense, mate. And I think the thing is, and I read this just recently. I can't remember if it was Alex Bilby or Sam Newman, one of the books I'm reading, but he basically said, look, sometimes people like Google will do something, and people say, well, Google did it must be right. And that is not the case. Like, even big companies and big developers do things the wrong way. And,
I also think if you're constantly trying to do things the way that someone else says you should do them, how will you ever learn your own style as well?
Yeah, absolutely. But, I know I will have imposter syndrome to the day I die.
I think a good developer does a bit. I think because you shouldn't be you should be confident but not cocky, and you shouldn't. I can have confidence, but I can still have imposter syndrome because I still feel like, whoa, I don't really know this stuff. But what happens, as you say, is the more you know you don't know, and that is the beautiful thing about our industry, and the beautiful thing about any industry where there is so much going on and so much change and so many clever people around and from so many facets of life who come in. Because in this industry you'll get people who went to university, or someone who was a scripting kid hacker coming in, or you'll get the people who are the mathematicians, you'll get the people who come in when they get older and stuff, and you'll get all these walks of life, and they have so many different kind of clever things, or scientists and everyone. Like, you'll get all these different people and all their different experiences and stuff, and you're bound to feel imposter syndrome because everyone's different. But you've got to remember that what you have, so you have something that no one else has, and that is what your experiences and your things, and it's the truth that we're all going to be wrong some of the time. Like, it's fine to be wrong. And I think it's nurturing that and allowing yourself to be wrong and allowing yourself to learn. Because no one goes around just completing everything. And like you say, Google does it wrong too. A lot of big companies do it wrong. A lot of people do it wrong. I think the trouble is people, and as you say with the whole thing, Lou, if you're saying like, that people will tell you that you're wrong, you shouldn't do it that way. I kind of, I have maybe some tunnel vision at some point, tunnel vision, because sometimes what I do is I go, okay, well, as you say, like I'll go through and I'll focus on these people and, I admire these people, get the Uncle Bobs of the world and all these big people like Martin Fowler and stuff. You read their stuff and you absorb it and you're like, oh, wow, they're so good and all this stuff. But then you move on to other people and you'll slowly build up, as you say, your own kind of thinking of things. And it's nice to have that confidence. Again, you still have the imposter syndrome, but you're just confident a little more in what you're doing.
Yeah, completely agree.
But I was actually going to say, mentioned for people who do want to start a podcast, like, because it would be great if there were like people making podcasts off the back of our podcast, they actually wanted to start, doing it with their friends, kind of thing and that. And I will just mention how easy it is. Like, when we were doing it, obviously, it was very much like the first episode, as Mickey said, like, we were just recording it through our iMac. Well, Mickey's iMac, through Skype. So Skype has been like the kind of the de facto, Skype is the easiest thing, essentially. Everyone's got Skype. So I really recommend just using Skype or Google Hangouts. And there are some new ones in the market, but we'll go through what we've done. So we have Skype, and then what we did was we used to just upload it. I think we hosted it on your servers, Mickey, didn't we, for a while? I think we made an XML file that was actually just a static XML file that then we said registered off to iTunes and etc. And then you would actually manually edit this XML file. Yeah. And then we've kind of gone through some, changes where we made it more dynamic. So we have like the files still hosted. Well, we hosted the files in Dropbox once, and then we went for more dynamic where we had it on the server and a DO server, DigitalOcean server, where it was a PHP site, and it would have like, it would generate the markup for you, the XML POG feed for you. And then, then eventually now where we're at is, so we have Skype, that's our kind of de facto recording. We use Audio Hijack for recording. So I've essentially just got a nice little setup where, I'm recording my end and also anyone on Skype's end. We could do things such as like double enders, which essentially is everyone's recording their own conversation. So they record their own local, and then eventually what happens is they'll upload it to one person, they'll mix it all together. That's the best way of doing it. I mean, it's the cheapest, easiest way of doing a good edit. And a lot of professionals do that. A lot of radio people do that as well. But we typically, the easiest way for us is we just go, I record on Skype, and then I've got the people's audio externally and my audio, and then we'll use Audacity, just clean it up. One of the things, actually, tips that Stephen Proctor said when we edited, when we did the functional programming one with him, was he said, don't, actually he asked like for a little noise sample beforehand. I was like, that's a great idea. So now what we do before we record, before we actually start the intro and everything, we'll just do a simple, can we have just 10-second silence, and essentially that 10-second silence allows me to pick up a good noise sample where I can then use in Audacity just noise removal, and it is amazing how effective that really is. So yeah, that's essentially kind of how we do it, and then we upload the files, get uploaded now to a DigitalOcean box. We played around with S3 was great, but it was very, very expensive for what it was, really, because we don't get loads of traffic, but like these files are 30 megabyte each and everything, and it mounts up. So I went back to the DigitalOcean box, and that's come down the pricing and stuff, and we're still getting very good. There's 1 terabyte transfer on a DigitalOcean box for like the $5 version or $6 one. So it's amazing. That's fine. And then we host on GitHub. So GitHub, then what we do is we have the static build and Jekyll, and you can see it, like it's all available, and I'll put it in the show notes, the GitHub repo that we have, and you can see and just copy it, clone it, change it, and make a podcast. It's a great experience. Like, again, like it's become part of, it sounds really corny, it's become part of my life, really, because it's something that I can always go to, always like, oh, it's really interesting, oh, it'd be really cool if we could talk about this, I'll talk about it with you guys, and it's been a gateway into like being able to talk to people that we never thought we would talk to.
Yeah, that's the thing, because you've had conversations with like some of the rock stars of the industry, haven't you? Like,
the great thing is they're just humans. Like, everyone's like, you may ask these people, like, oh God, I really, and you speak to them, and like, they're the nicest people in the world, and that's the
like
great
Go,
thing.
for instance, like he makes PHP.
Yeah. I know, mental. He is, a core PHP developer, and he's the nicest guy ever, and he's open and free to talk about anything. And with Joe, we've been able to do like screen casts and things like that. I never would have thought of being able to talk to me. And this is the nice thing. Like, remember we spoke to about with Adam Watham, where he started up Full Stack Radio, and it's just kind of like you ask someone, say, hey, do you mind just talking to me for an hour, just randomly on Skype? It's like, okay, why? No, you weirdo, what are you doing? I've got a podcast. Boom, there you go. And it makes instantly people like, yeah, okay, then I'll come on as it's a podcast. So it's essentially a way for us to talk to all these really clever people and in kind of delivery of a podcast. So, I mean, it's really great. And again, like maybe if you have any problems or any issues, like just ping us, like contact 3devsandmaybe.com. If you want to start up a podcast, if you want any info, any help, we'll be more than happy to help. One annoying thing about iTunes is really kind of like the stats and things like that. We never really got it down, and I did kind of have it down for a bit, and then I messed it up and everything. I've been playing around with a lot, but the one that I've actually stuck on now is something called PodTrack, and I would recommend just using that. Essentially, PodTrack is like it's a free pod tracking, essentially, because it's PodTrack software online service, and all you do is you just append a URL, so it does a redirect link essentially to your actual asset, so then it can work out all these things, and it deals with all the stuff of like, you know, you only want unique IPs, you only want unique downloads, you want to make sure that it was a full download, all the funky stuff that it needs to do, and it will give you a nice stats, you know, for like, oh, how many people downloaded it and stuff, and what's, you know, most, you know, common countries, etc., and all these interesting things. But yeah, that's me just kind of yabbing on, but I would say, like, really recommend people make podcasts. They're awesome. They
are very awesome, and I get by day listening to different podcasts and stuff. So yeah, the more that are out there, then the better, in my opinion.
Can we, for the 100th episode, can we release the unaired like episode where Fraser talks about arrays and like apples and pears, and it takes like 4 takes?
Tears pouring down my face during that. I remember
we got so we you know, talk about not being cocky or anything. We got so cocky on the second episode. We'd done the first one, and we're like, oh, phew, you know, that was good, and you know,
we were like, yeah, 10 people have listened to this,
exactly. And then we're like, let's do the second one, and then wow, yeah, did we just completely just get into giggles, and we did everything wrong, and it was like, yeah, this isn't professional at all. Like, it's great to have a bit of a laugh, but then you realise, wow, there's a lot of editing to do, and there's actually practically no good thing. And like the amount of time, you're talking about apples and oranges, and oh god, it was great. But no, it's funny. Like I say, like all this is documented. You know, insane. But I mean, actually, one thing that you used to do a lot of, Mickey, because I've been going through some of the old episodes, just kind of listening to some bits of them, was the picks of the week or hot picks of the week.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking we should bring this back. So I'm putting.
We never had any.
Well, we seem to make.
Well, you always did. We didn't.
Well, no, we were like, I don't know, the internet.
Or Mick would find something, but then admit that he hadn't actually.
Oh god, yeah. It's like, well, I haven't used this yet. And I never will, but I recommend this. No, absolutely. No, I'm not making you, Mickey. But no, so kind of like anything in your day-to-day job can be anything.
Can you put a poll on Twitter? Should we bring back hot picks? Because remember the last time you put a poll on Twitter?
It got absolutely 1 vote, which was a solid vote from you because I was talking to you at the time. Yeah, that was not a great poll. I'll do a poll, but we'll see how many people actually get it, how much people actually respond to it. But no, has anyone actually got any picks, like anything on their day-to-day life, like, you know, day-to-day, what software they use, what they couldn't live without?
VR is the coolest thing ever. Like, even for people that, like, because I'm not much of a gamer in the slightest, but it is the coolest thing. So if anyone's on the fence about getting VR, just get it. It's like, yeah.
The amount of like joy, it's quite fun talking to Fraser about VR, because the minute you talk about it, he gets like this massive grin, and it's like, yes, this is the best thing ever. And you even like, yeah, you feel like this is going to be, and it really does sound amazing.
Oh, it's so cool. Like, you can do the most mundane things in the world, but it just feels okay. I'm probably still in the honeymoon period with it because I've not had a huge chance to play it for a lot. I've only spent a few hours on it.
Are you waiting for it to cheat on you? You're waiting for the relationship to go sour, and then, you know.
Exactly, yeah. But I can't put into words, and you can't, like, words and videos and images don't do it justice. It's amazing. So if anyone has any inkling on getting into VR, just do it. It's amazing.
Can you send me some show notes, show links and stuff, like any blog intro, like kind of, because I mean, like, I was speaking to you about the weekend was kind of my first ever foray into the whole world of like VR, and I just didn't realise there was like 2 camps, you know, the HTC camp and then the Oculus camp and all this.
Yeah, HTC's winning because it's well better.
That's exactly it, you know. So it'd be great. I mean, if you could send me some links and stuff, like, it'd be great for people who actually want to get involved. And ping Fraser on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah, ping me on Twitter if anybody wants to talk VR, or if anyone's on AltSpace VR. I haven't got any friends on AltSpace VR, so come and add me on AltSpace VR.
Didn't you say that you can like the space shuttle launch or something? You were all in like a room watching.
Yeah, they were doing a viewing party for a SpaceX launch. But this was on Friday night, and it was going off at 2:00 in the morning because I think it was somewhere else in the world. And I was playing about 10 o'clock, so I went in the room for it. But it's kind of cool. Like, AltSpace VR, they have. Not, you wouldn't call them parties because that'd sound really sad, but they have these like events and stuff, and they have musicians, and they have like comedy nights and stuff, and you it's like a chat room, like the old days of the internet, but you're actually physically in it, and you can walk over and have a physical chat with somebody, and it's insane. Like it's really cool. But yeah, I'm yet to have a conversation with anyone because like I feel a bit weird standing there.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, no, I feel a bit weird standing in my living room having a conversation and with my flatmates walking in and out, being like, what the hell's he talking to? But yeah, it's really cool. So anybody has any VR questions or wants to chat VR or anything, please get me on Twitter.
Awesome. And Mickey, how about you, man?
So this is something that I couldn't live without or wouldn't want to live without.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like tools, anything, kind of thing. I mean,
Do you know what?
Because we don't talk about it much at the moment anymore.
I mean, to be honest with you, for me now, like the projects I work on, to think about not working with Laravel and Homestead,
yep,
that would be. Also, I know I could work without it, but I wouldn't want to. For me,
so what is it about Homestead? Is it because it's just all there, the kitchen, it's just got everything it needs?
Straight out of the box, yeah, just everything's there, and then, you can use Artisan, and there's no worried about...
Have you looked at Valet yet, Mike?
No.
Have you heard about it?
No.
Oh, it takes away all of that. It's I'll send you a link to a tutorial. It's like an even more lightweight local development that I think Taylor Otwell and Adam Wellen built it.
They mentioned it. It sounds really interesting. Do you remember we used DNS mask? Yeah, we used that to do the .dev stuff and be able to easily have our host files and things. But yeah, like they've been able to do it with Caddy and all. Like that's just like a small HTTP 2 server, and it's really interesting. Essentially, like it is being able to spin up quick development environments just locally. I mean, I would still recommend. I would say having because. During development and stuff, like being able to actually just have like a representation of what real production is still the win, because you get burnt on so much, especially if you're doing a project like you are, where you've got so many different things, software packages, you've got like different services, you've got your Postgres installation, you've got, things that you depend on, extensions maybe. Relying on it just being on your local box can kind of be a bit scary, especially, if you're not running the identical build, and you're typically not going to be running, like an Ubuntu installation. So, I mean, Lou, that the SSL stuff that you got, I mean, that's type of thing where you get burnt, and you're like, oh yeah, because I need to have this dot release of this and etc. And yeah, having your identical builds is still like the pro. But yeah, for simple things like that, Valet sounds really interesting. How about you, Lou? Obviously, Valet, I guess, is something you've been.
No, I'm not using it. I just know they've launched it recently. But yeah, Laravel and Homestead, I use them all the time now.
What IDEs do you guys use?
I use WebStorm.
Use WebStorm. What about you, Lou?
I'm using Atom. It's not an IDE, but it's the editor that I use.
That's good. Do you prefer it then over? Because Sublime has released a new build, I think, of 3. Like, what? It's like the win is over.
I haven't used it, but I just like Atom. It's nice. It's nice and clean looking. It's the people at GitHub made it, so it's like it's constantly in development. There's a load of plugins for things that you can bring into it, like for Git and PHP Unit, and I don't know, like nice and quick file search and replace functionality, and just. And it, to be honest, it's really easy to transition to from Sublime because a lot of the keyboard shortcuts are the same.
That is always nice when you don't have to. Yeah, your muscle memory stays intact.
But yeah, I mean, Sublime kept crashing on my old laptop, and ultimately then it died. So I put a black mark against Sublime, although it's probably nothing to do with it. But
yeah, I agree with Lou. Actually, I think Atom is a very nice editor. I use that at home, but yeah, in the office I use WebStorm just because they pay a lot for a license for me. So.
And it's awesome. Like JetBrains stuff is so cool. I'm a PHP Storm guy, and it's essentially like the kind of the PHP equivalent of WebStorm, and it's got some of the WebStorm stuff in it with the Java because it's PHP is obviously the web language that includes it all. Yeah, and yeah, it's just awesome. I love PHP Storm. How about you, Mickey?
I got a free version of PHP Storm through my university, and I just hate it. And
I just don't know why.
I'm still Sublime guy.
Yeah, you've never liked it. I never understand. Like, I just love the refactoring stuff to do with it. It just makes things so much easier, stubbing stuff out.
Slow, clunky.
You, Mickey B. God, has to ruin it all.
Sorry.
So, Lou, did you have anything else? Sorry, I completely took you over when I was talking the ideas.
Only on the front end, browser sync. I've talked about that quite a few times. The thing that I use that basically synchronizes on my computer and on my iPad and on my phone.
Yeah. So how does that work? So that essentially allows you to then have a development build that's locally running on your machine, and you just test it and develop and test it on other devices.
You can have it open on everything, and it just synchronizes every time you hit save. It's got like a live reload thing built into it, so it does the whole job without you having to refresh and keep picking your phone up and looking at it and stuff.
Does it
really
make
cool.
so? Do you like have it all set up where you have like the iPad and the iPhone and then your computer and you save and you check it in all the browsers at the same time?
Yeah, when I get
Pretty
to
cool
that
rapidly.
stage. Yeah, it's very cool. It saved so much time because I don't literally have to have my hands on the phone either. I can, if I scroll on my mouse, it automatically scrolls up and down on the phone as well.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's insane. I
didn't
can't
realise
believe
that.
more people aren't using it.
Yeah, I mean that is. So does it say set up as a local machine? Do you have to like on the web on your like other devices just go to your local machine then?
Yeah,
It
well,
sets
you
up a URL.
just basically I use the API that they've written for it. I've just got an npm script that hooks into it, and then when it boots up, it literally in purple just shows you what the URLs you need to access it on whatever devices you're on.
That's awesome.
You just go to
I've
those.
I've never used it before. I knew that it could do like push it. I never knew it could do like scrolling. I mean that's mental.
Yeah, give it
Wow.
a go. Honestly,
I will definitely.
That's by far certainly in the last 6 months the thing that's changed, that's improved my workflow the fastest.
That's
or
cool.
most, should I say?
Awesome.
Yeah.
One thing actually I will say because I do now obviously working like with some people on a big project, a long running project, essentially a product, and you're using GitHub and you're doing the pull request driven development essentially, where you have a feature, you do a pull request, it gets merged into master, released, etc. Actually explaining. Like writing obviously good pull requests is a great thing, but like the assets along with that, such as say screenshots and things like that. One thing that I can't live without is recordit.co. So record it. And it's a free GIF animation recording product for the Mac. And it's amazing. Essentially what it does is you just, drag in saying, I want to record this part of the screen. You do your demo because you want to, maybe explain a certain bit of feature functionality, especially if it's a front end thing, you want to show off what happens. And you record it. And it will then upload it to their servers. It will give you a GIF link. You then put it in your GitHub repo, your comment or whatever, your description. Boom, you send it to the person. I'd use it every day pretty much.
Is there a time limit on the recordings?
No, not really. I mean, it's only as long as you really want. I mean, they're going to get bigger, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, obviously, because GIFs aren't exactly the best format to store these things in, but they're just so ubiquitous. But no, I recommend recordit.co, and I use it every day. And it was one of those ones where today I was like playing, I used it, and I was like thinking, I need to make a note of that because I need to talk about it on the show because, I use it every day and it just kind of slips my mind.
Yeah, that's got to be useful for remote working, isn't it?
Absolutely, because sometimes you just want to like show off something. Again, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, you want to just show off, okay, this is the feature or this is a bug, and you can board, you have a bug, maybe you want to replicate it. If I replicate it, I haven't got enough time to fix it. I'll just start up this. Do a recording of a GIF, and I'll be able to like put that in with the actual, with the bug, and then people can see exactly what's going on. So I really recommend it, and because it's such an easy, there's so many different recording things out there. I mean, GIFs are, again, ubiquitous, so everyone is doing like recording things. I love this just because of the fact of how simple it is. That it just once you put it in, you click it, you start record, it does a recording, it will then give you a link, and that's it. Job done. So
there's one that I use which is similar to that called LiceCap, and it literally just lets you the same thing. You like draw a box around the area of the screen that you want to record, and you set your record settings like 24 frames a second. Press record, it will give you a 3-second countdown. Do what you want to do, and then it will spit you out an animated GIF onto your desktop, and you can share that wherever you do.
That's cool, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I quite often put those in like our red mine tickets if there's ever like a dispute, like QA's requesting something that no one can replicate, we'll say, well, this is us trying to replicate it, and you can actually give a little GIF, and you can just upload it as an image to Redmine, and then everyone knows exactly where everyone is. And
it's just nice to have that because it describes intent. Because especially when you're doing like big pull requests or you're doing bugs and things, sometimes it's very hard. Like we're not exactly wordsmiths as developers, so actually having something like an animation or like explaining it, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and a video is worth how many of those, So it's just invaluable, really. Has anyone else got anything else they want to talk about on the 100th episode? I think I've said 100th episode like a billion times, but it is the 100th episode.
People need to know.
Yeah,
absolutely. Anyone else got anything else, or shall we wrap this one up?
We should wrap it up, man.
Wrap it up.
And on to the next 100. All right then, audience. Speak to you later. Bye.
See ya.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.